A 2-year-old boy points at the photo of a blonde woman on a card. His parents look at the child, perhaps expecting an innocent, childish comment. But what comes out of Billy Campbell's mouth freezes the blood of anyone who hears it. Look, it's me when I was a princess. The mother, Lisa Campbell, feels her heart racing. The father, David Campbell, a television presenter in Australia, tries to laugh. After all, children say strange things all the time, right? But Billy doesn't stop. He continues. And over the next 2 years, that little Australian boy will say things no child should know. Things even his own parents didn't know. Precise, intimate, chilling details about the life of someone who died 18 years before he was born. The woman in the photo was Diana Spencer, the people's princess, the most photographed woman in the world, the one who died in Paris on an August night in 1997, chased by paparazzi in an accident that shocked billions of people. And this boy, born in 2015, says he was her. Would you believe it if it were your child saying this? What would you do if a 2-year-old child precisely described the death of someone famous, spoke of siblings no one knows about, pointed to castles he'd never visited? Brace yourself. Because this is not a story of childish fantasy. This is the story of Billy Campbell, and it will make you question everything you thought you knew about memory, life, and death. Sydney, Australia, 2017. The Campbell family home is like any other home with small children. Toys scattered about, laughter, running around. David Campbell is a well-known name on Australian television. Singer, actor, presenter of the morning show Today Extra. His wife Lisa is British, with deep English roots. Together they have 3 children. Leo, 9 years old, and 4-year-old twins, Billy and Betty. It's an ordinary day. Someone hands Lisa a thank you card. On the cover, an iconic image, Lady Di, in that electric blue dress, that smile that lit up crowds. Lisa doesn't even think much about it. It's just a card. But when she leaves it on the table, something extraordinary happens. Billy approaches. His small fingers touch the image, and then he says those words that would change everything. Look, it's me when I was a princess. Lisa freezes. David, who's nearby, looks up. They exchange a glance. What did he just say? Billy is 2 years old. He's barely learning to form complete sentences. How can he know who that woman in the photo is? What did you say, honey? Lisa asks, trying to sound casual. Billy points again. It was me, when I was a princess. David laughs nervously. Okay, Billy, sure, buddy. He thinks it's just kid stuff. Overactive imagination. After all, children say the craziest things, don't they? But something in Billy's gaze isn't childish. There's a certainty there, a calmness, as if he's remembering something real. And then Billy doesn't stop. Over the following weeks, the boy begins to talk about things he shouldn't know. He talks about his boys. When his parents ask what boys he's referring to, Billy answers naturally. My sons. David and Lisa look at each other, bewildered. Sons? Billy is 4 years old. What is he talking about? What are your sons' names, Billy? David asks, playing along, expecting the boy to make up random names. But Billy doesn't invent anything. My boys, he repeats, and he talks about them as if they were real, as if he missed them. But no one imagined what would come next. A Scottish friend visits the Campbell family. During the conversation, Billy approaches and says something that leaves everyone silent. When I was Princess Diana, I used to go to a castle in that land of Scottish kilts. The Scottish friend frowns. A castle, Billy? Which castle? Billy describes with precision. It had unicorns on the walls. It was called Balmoral. David feels a chill run down his spine. Balmoral. The Scottish castle beloved by Queen Elizabeth. The place where the royal family spent entire summers. Diana was there countless times. But how the hell does Billy know that name? How does he know there are unicorns at Balmoral? Because there are. The unicorn is Scotland's national animal, and Balmoral's walls are decorated with unicorn emblems. But David and Lisa never talked about this with their children. They're not even monarchy fans. They rarely watch news about the royal family. So where does this information come from? David decides to run a test. He searches online for photos of various castles. Windsor, Buckingham, Balmoral, other Scottish castles. He prints them and places them in front of Billy. Billy, which of these is your Balmoral castle? Without hesitating for a second, Billy points to the correct photo. Balmoral, the exact castle. Lisa feels the air escape from her lungs. David turns pale. This is no longer childish imagination. This is something else. And then comes the strongest blow. One night, Lisa shows Billy another photo of Diana. This time, an image of her smiling, radiant in all her royal splendor. Billy stares at it. His eyes fill with something no 4-year-old child should have. Deep melancholy. Loss. "There I am when I was a princess," Billy says softly. And then, without anyone asking, he adds something that makes Lisa drop the photo. "And then one day, the sirens came, and I wasn't a princess anymore." The silence in the room is absolute. The sirens. Billy is talking about the accident. He's talking about Diana's death, about the tunnel in Paris, about the ambulances, about that horrible day on the 31st of August, 1997, when the world stopped. How can a 4-year-old child know this? How can he describe it with such emotional precision? David and Lisa don't know what to do. They don't know if they should be scared, if they should take him to a psychologist, if they should ignore it. But Billy keeps talking, and every word is a hammer breaking their skepticism. Little did they know, that night was only the beginning. David Campbell is a journalist. He's trained to look for evidence, not to believe everything he hears. But what's happening with his son overwhelms him. He decides to document everything, every statement, every detail, every moment Billy talks about his life as a princess. And then he does what any father would do. He looks for answers. He discovers they're not alone, that there's a scientific community studying exactly this. At the University of Virginia, United States, there's a department called the Division of Perceptual Studies. There, for over 60 years, researchers have documented cases of children who claim to remember past lives. Dr. Ian Stevenson, founder of this work, dedicated his life to studying over 2,500 cases around the world. When he retired, Dr. Jim Tucker took his place. Tucker is a child psychiatrist, professor at the University of Virginia School of Medicine, and his work is rigorous, methodical, scientific. Tucker has documented fascinating patterns. Children who report past life memories usually begin talking between ages 2 and 6. They speak with details impossible for their age. They mention names of people they never met. They describe places they never visited. And in many cases, when investigators verify the information, it turns out to be accurate. One of the most famous cases is Ryan Hammond's, a boy from Oklahoma who at 5 years old began describing memories of a past life in Hollywood. He talked about having 3 children, driving a green car, working in the film industry. He mentioned names, addresses, specific events. Tucker investigated and discovered that everything matched the life of Marty Martin, a movie extra and talent agent who died in 1964. Could Billy be another case like Ryan? David writes about his son in Stellar magazine in 2019. The article is titled, "The Strangest Column I've Ever Written." And in it, he details everything Billy has said. The coincidences, The impossible details. The description of the accident. But there's more. Much more. One night when Billy was a baby and wasn't sleeping well, Lisa entered his room. "Why aren't you sleeping, honey?" Billy, barely 2 years old, responded with something that froze his mother's blood. "Because they come and take me." "Who, Billy? Who takes you?" Billy pointed toward the ceiling. "They do, but they bring me back by morning." Lisa didn't know what to say. Was her son having nighttime visitors? Was he experiencing something he couldn't explain? And then comes the detail that makes all of this even more inexplicable. One day, David asks Billy, "Who else was in your family when you were a princess?" Billy responds without hesitation, "I have brothers and sisters. I have a brother named John." David and Lisa look at each other. There's no John in the royal family. Diana's brother is named Charles Spencer. Billy is making this up, they think. Finally, proof that all this is fantasy. But then David searches Wikipedia, and what he finds paralyzes him. Diana Spencer had a brother named John. John Spencer. But he died just hours after being born, a year before Diana was born. It's a detail so obscure, so little known, that not even the most devoted royal family fans know it. How the hell does Billy know about John Spencer? But the highest peak had not yet arrived. When David Campbell's article is published in 2019, the world explodes. British media outlets pounce on the story. Daily Mirror, Scottish Daily Express, Daily Mail all publish articles about the Australian boy who says he's Diana reincarnated. Social media burns, some believe, others mock. Skeptics argue that Billy simply absorbed information from conversations, from the internet, from books, but David and Lisa insist. They never talked about Diana with their children. There are no royal family magazines at home. They don't watch documentaries about Diana. So where does all this knowledge come from? David appears on Today Extra, the morning show he himself presents, to talk about the topic. He shares the castle test live. He shows how Billy identified Balmoral without hesitation. The audience is astonished. Comments multiply by thousands. "My son also says things like this," writes a mother from London. "He talks about a life that isn't his." "This gives me goosebumps," another comments. "I don't know whether to believe, but the details are too precise." Meanwhile, in the scientific community, Billy Campbell's case is added to the database of studied cases. It's not unique, but it is extraordinary because of the specificity of the claims and because of who he claims to have been, one of the most public figures of the 20th century. But then something happens that no one expected. Billy grows up, and as happens with almost all children in these documented cases, the memories begin to fade. At 6 years old, Billy no longer talks about Diana. At 8 years old, if you ask him, he doesn't remember having said those things. It's as if a window had closed, as if that connection with something beyond had disconnected. David describes it in later interviews. Billy is now a normal kid. He doesn't mention anything about Diana anymore. It's as if it never happened. But did it really never happen? Or did Billy, during those crucial first years of life, have access to something adults can no longer touch? Dr. Jim Tucker explains this is common. Children who report past life memories usually forget them between ages 6 and 8. It's as if the developing brain, when fully consolidated, erases those memories. Or perhaps, as Tucker suggests, the connection with previous consciousness fades over time. But the recordings exist. The documented statements are there. Billy said what he said. And no one, to this day, has been able to satisfactorily explain how a 2-year-old child knew about John Spencer, about Balmoral, about the unicorns, about the sirens, and the day Diana stopped being a princess. While the world continued trying to decipher the mystery, something deeper began to resonate. So what really happened with Billy Campbell? Is it possible for a soul to return? For consciousness to survive beyond physical death? Dr. Jim Tucker, in his decades of research, has studied over 2,200 cases like Billy's. And although he doesn't claim to have all the answers, the patterns are undeniable. Children who talk about previous lives, children who mention verifiable names, children who have birthmarks that match fatal wounds of deceased people. Tucker proposes a fascinating theory based on quantum physics. He suggests that consciousness might not be a product of the brain, but something separate, something that uses the brain as a receiver. When the body dies, consciousness continues. And in some rare cases, especially in very young children, that consciousness can remember fragments of its previous existence. It's an idea that challenges everything traditional Western science accepts. But Tucker isn't alone. Researchers in India, Sri Lanka, Thailand, Lebanon, and Burma have documented thousands of similar cases. In cultures where reincarnation is part of the religious worldview, these cases are more common. But they also happen in the West, in families who never believed in reincarnation, who have no cultural framework to explain what their children are saying. And then there's Diana, the woman who captivated the world, the princess who rebelled against royal norms, the mother who prioritized her children above protocol, the activist who walked through minefields to create awareness, the woman who died at 36, at the peak of her life, leaving a void that even today, almost 3 decades later, the world still feels. Could her spirit have returned? Could Billy, during those first years of life, have been a bridge between this world and something greater? We don't know. We may never know with absolute certainty. But what we do know is this: Billy Campbell said things he shouldn't know. And to this day, no one has been able to explain how. Years later, Billy's story continues to resonate. In 2024, new articles resurface. The case goes viral again on social media. TikTok videos accumulate millions of views. The question remains open, throbbing, alive. Was Billy Diana? And you, right now, hearing this story, face the same question David and Lisa Campbell faced that night when their son pointed to a photo and said, "It's me when I was a princess." What would you do? Would you believe? Would you look for logical explanations? Or would you accept that maybe, just maybe, there are things in this universe that go beyond what our senses can comprehend? And you, have you lived something impossible like this? Or do you know someone who has seen a mystery like this? Share your experience down below in the comments. Your story could help another family. And subscribe now. Next week we have another real case. And it might be even more intriguing. Don't miss it! Next week, a boy who remembers dying in World War II and describes his plane with chilling details. Get ready to be amazed again. Today, Billy Campbell is 9 years old. He plays soccer. He goes to school. He laughs with his siblings. He no longer talks about princesses, castles, or sirens in the night. If you ask him about Diana, he looks at you confused. He doesn't remember saying those things. But the recordings exist. The articles are archived. David and Lisa's testimonies remain. And somewhere on the internet, there are photos of a small boy pointing to a castle and saying, "That's my Balmoral." Memory is strange, isn't it? Sometimes we remember things we never lived. Sometimes we forget things that marked our soul. And sometimes, in those first years of life, when the veil between worlds is thinner, perhaps we can touch something ancient, something eternal. Diana Spencer died in Paris on the 31st of August, 1997. 18 years later, in Sydney, Australia, a boy named Billy was born. And for 4 years, that boy spoke as if he had lived before. Coincidence, imagination, or something deeper, more mysterious, more beautiful than we can comprehend? I don't have the answer. You don't either. But perhaps, just perhaps, the answer doesn't matter as much as the question itself. Because in the end, what Billy Campbell reminds us is this: the universe is vaster, more complex, more astonishing than we can ever measure. And perhaps, somewhere between life and death, between memory and forgetting, between past and present, there's something that connects us all. Something that doesn't die when the body falls. Something that continues. Something that, sometimes, in rare moments of grace, whispers to us from the other side. And if one night you hear a small child talk about a life that isn't theirs, if they point to photos of strangers and say, "That's me," don't dismiss too quickly what they're saying. Because maybe, just maybe, they're remembering something we all forgot when we grew up. Until the next story, until the next mystery. And remember, in this world, nothing is impossible. Absolutely nothing.